Anyway, so I want to say a few words here that Tracy's father, Louis Stillman.
No, not Tracy.
No, not my father.
My father.
You're married?
No, I'm talking about Tracy's father now. I want to say a few words that Tracy's father would have said if he was here. I know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Tracy's father would have said to my machatanum. He would have known that word. No, I'm just kidding. This is a speech I have from Marla's father, Lou Stillman, and he's a famous speech giver. He spent years giving speeches for the United Nations and the Red Cross. He wrote speeches for Gerald Ford and the first Bush, and now he's written a speech for Marla that I would like to share with you all. I am truly sorry that Edie and I, that's Edie is my grandmother, Marla's mother, that Edie and I cannot be with you for this special occasion. But you know that if we are not with you in body, we are certainly with you in spirit. I know that if I were present, I would be asked to say something about my daughter Marla. That's not quite right. I should say our daughter Marla. Because as I understand it, the wife also has a small part in the production of the child.
Just a small.
So I thought, what could I say? I'm certain people will extol all the good stuff that relates to Marla. Things like how she's a great wife and mother, and especially great as a grandmother. A person with good social skills, teaching ability, and other good qualities like that. So I thought, I'll tell you about the bad stuff. Occasions that caused some discomfort or worry, and after deep thought, I could only find 3 things. And the first one was before she was even born. I did not go with Edith when she went to the hospital for Marla's birth. Her parents took her. I was sick in bed with terrible, terrible stomach pains and just could not get up and walk. Later, some friends of mine said it was all Marla's fault, as the excitement and nervousness of having our first child must have worked on me to bring on the spasms and stomach pains. That might be so, but I'm not sure if it was really Marla's fault, because a few months later it happened again, and this time I had to be rushed to the hospital after being diagnosed as having an appendix attack. The second time was at Marla's first date with Steve. This was a blind date arranged by a good friend of ours and Steve, and I have to say, Steve came highly recommended. Anyway, the night of the date, Marla was all dressed up and waiting. Edie, Rhonda, that's Marla's sister, and I were looking out the living room window, awaiting the arrival of this fine gentleman. And then we heard this noise of a car coming that to me sounded like it had a broken muffler. Later, I learned that it was probably a special exhaust pipe that made this sound to designate power. Anyway, eventually, this car comes farting around the street and stops in front of our house, and out steps this burly individual, Steve Areno. His hair was piled high on his head, as was the style then, I guess, like Madame Pompadour. And he had a mustache that flowed from his upper lip around his mouth, down to the bottom of his chin, like Attila the Hun. Now, Edie and I knew that he was okay. We had great recommendations about him from our friend. But poor Rhonda, she only knew what she was seeing. She turned to Edie and said, "Don't let my sister go out with him." Regardless, away they went. And I have to admit, around 10:30, Edie and I started looking out our bedroom window for their return. And sometime later, we saw the car come farting down the road, stop in front of our house, and out stepped Marla, happy, smiling, safe and sound. And I'm pleased to say that we are some 39 years later, and Marla, with Steve, is still happy, smiling, safe and sound. Happy anniversary. The third situation was a bit more serious. But first I have to tell you that my wife Edith is a worrier. If the tap leaked, she worried about the whole plumbing system. And if the kids were a little late coming home from school, she was sure something terrible had happened on their way home. I once had to get my car fixed at a garage quite away from the store where I worked, and I told Edie I would be a couple of hours late. I left work at 1 p.m., but somehow I could not find the garage right away. By the time I got home, I was 3 hours late. To say Edie was frantic is understatement. An understatement. Just how frantic Edie had been, I didn't find out until I saw our next phone bill. She had phoned the highway police to find out if there had been any accidents in the part of the city where I had gone looking for my garage. And the police headquarters was on the outskirts of Toronto, so I had a long-distance charge of $1.50. Well, $1.50 may not seem like much now, but at that time, I could have treated myself to a corned beef sandwich and a Coke. Anyway, one Saturday, while I was at work, Edie called me to say that Marla and Anna were coming to our house from Bowmanville, where they live, and they should have been in half an hour ago. I assured her there was no need to worry. It was raining and Marla and the rest of the traffic would be driving slower. 30 minutes later, she called again. Still no Marla. Again, I tried to soothe her with my logic. However, 15 minutes later, she called to say that she'd had a call from the hospital and Marla and Anna had been in an accident. Fortunately, Anna was fine, and after a few days spent in the hospital, Marla also came out none the worse from the ordeal. Except that she can't move her neck like this. That's my comment.
Do you remember that?
I should have stuck to the script. For a long time after that incident, Edie had me over a barrel because of Marla's accident. If she worried about something and I tried to reason with her, she came back with, "You said Marla was okay that time and there was something wrong. You're not always right." I tell you, it was a tough going for a while there. Anyway, in 60 years, only 3 problems associated with Marla. An average of 1 every 20 years. So Marla, I expect it to be another 20 years before you give me anything to worry about. Now, a famous psychologist, after years of study and work, came up with this conclusion. The more birthdays you have, the longer you live. Mom and I wish you many more happy birthdays, and hopefully we will be around to help celebrate a good number of them with you. Happy, happy birthday, Dad. So in honor of Marla and Steve's anniversary, and in honor